Black Box Productions.
In a post with SpongeBob in it, made it their business to salute, gave Pride, was it month? Let me see, I got it right here. I just knew I had it up here, but it says Nickelodeon, celebrating Pride with the LGBTQ community and their allies this month and every month. And they have SpongeBob up here with like rainbow overcast, this whole little look. It's not quite the traditional rainbow. It's more like a sherbet rainbow, kind of like less softer than the brightness of the actual rainbow. But it seemed like subtly they've included every color. And they have another man that I just assume is openly homosexual, another cartoon figure. But you know, with all the things that going on in the world, they felt it important and necessary to speak out and pledge their allegiance to Pride month, this month and every month, to the LGBTQ community and their allies. Allies suggest that there are enemies of a group, and then there are allies. And if you are enemies of, and you have never declared yourself an enemy of, although you do not consider yourself an ally of the movement, because perhaps you feel like there's a movement of heterosexuality that is under attack, that you would prefer to attach yourselves to them. This is an institution that has generally been accepted as an American child-friendly institution, to where we would think that brainwashing children to see the world one way or the other, despite what their decent parents may believe, would not be up on their agenda. But that is no longer. I subsequently also saw a post where it was an episode of SpongeBob, and the caption read, "So has SpongeBob been gay all along?" And it was, I think it was SpongeBob and Patrick, and they was like smashing off and leave, driving somewhere, and they were saying goodbye to Squidward and somebody else. So it was like, "Bye so and so, bye Squidward, bye Squidward," and then Patrick was like, "You said bye Squidward twice" to SpongeBob, and SpongeBob was like, "I like Squidward." So they captured that to say, was that like a subtle admission of a sexual orientation? You see how they changed the terminology from preference to orientation. If you look at the history of the movement, I'm becoming aware that in the 70s, as recently as the 70s, that movement would be considered mentally ill in America, according to all the experts. There's debate as to why, but the actual definition or classification of a mental illness was changed somewhere in the 70s. And there's a lot of debate as to the motivation as to why it was classified as different. However, now not only is it classified as different, it's a movement that's being celebrated to the point where they're just forcing it on children. And with every other movement that we hear, even with the Black Lives Matter, they say silence is compliance. So if you're an American and you realize the bombardment upon children with this much sexually charged content, sexually suggestive content, is a violation of their rights as children. It's almost as evasive as pedophilia to even continuously put these concepts and ideas at the forefront of their thoughts. It's like a rape of, I remember you would have to have a consent form to even have traditional sex education in school from your parents. And now the mainstream media is allowed to market sexual movement preferences right towards your children. I thank God for at to be at a time like this. We have a lot more options through streaming and control over the content that our children consume, because it's hard to say you're not going to allow your child to spend a lot of time in front of the screen. That's just not practical. It's kind of like the babysitter. And in times past, we were kind of like limited to a lot of what was being produced commercially and provided. But now with the way information and content is being broadened, there is a large selection that can help you if you're diligent to seek and search. There's a lot of selection if you're not going for the big mainstream kaboom that you can help. And it's typically when you find the more independent content, it's more directed toward education and lacing your kids up and teaching them wholesome things. And I would challenge you to be more diligent and looking through your the Rokus. If you had a Fire Stick, there's tons of apps directed directly toward children, and you can like pre-screen them, filter through them, even on the internet. You don't have to just sit your children down in front of these major machine systems who have this agenda to program, especially people that look like us. There is a definite immediate effort to emasculate the black man. There is obviously, in the eyes of America, no need for unapologetic, strong, non-feminized black man, father. He has to be, if he has any of those traits that I just listed, he has to be casted and perceived as a criminal thug or something bad. And I believe that it is the duty to those who believe in the essence of a non-apologetic, strong, positive black man. It's on us not only to stand firm, but to speak up on behalf of our movement. The natural way that it is obvious the universe designed things to go, and I'm not knocking what anybody else chooses to push. I would never be foolish enough to do that in such a public platform anyway. But what I am saying is there is another way that I support and push. And it's what I teach my kids. And I would never teach anyone else's children anything that I wouldn't teach mine about life and nature and what is generally supposedly appropriate. The variation that we're witnessing is such a vast at such a vast rate with so many more people. Even Dwayne Wade's child, I would never attack that young man as far as placing blame upon him. I don't even believe that what humans are going through when they say they're having these feelings so young, or they think that they need to be what they're not. I don't even typically place blame on them. It's not like everybody is just wanting to be a freak, or I don't think that's the case. However, I think that as a species, as a race, I think that there are things that can be done by those with the intentions and just by the consumptions of food, things that are in the environment that can cause genetics to be altered to where tendencies can become more frequent and current. Even when you just think about, I always relate nature to nature, and I've been a grower of marijuana for quite some years. And there, when you mate plants, it's male, female, and when you want a certain outcome, you can put male on male, or you can put female on female. You want to get more seeds, less seeds, you alter the way the genetics combine and mate, and you can cause it to do basically whatever you want to do based on how you combine the two or separate the two. And with all the conversation about GMOs and all those type of things, nature follows the same format. It's the same. They're trying to affect and alter everything to the point where there's no wonder or no surprise if they are effectively or accidentally. They could have started on an accident and then they started to do it on purpose, because you often hear about drugs that are marketed for a certain thing, but initially they were being studied and developed to perhaps help obesity. And in the process of the people doing trials for it, it started realizing that it alleviated pain. And now this is on the market as a pain medication. So it may have been something that they realized in the process of doing something else, that they can take testosterone and decrease it in the masses. They may have learned it through studies and then started reproducing that process purposely. I don't know what it is, but it's not like no one is in a position to attack any grown person for any decision choices they make. However, anytime you take a mind of a child that everyone can agree does not fully develop way beyond the age of even 18 at times, and bombarded with all these images of an alternative lifestyle versus just what we've been traditionally accustomed to in America for generations and generations, and in the world, and what just typically seems the pattern of nature, male, female. Even when you talk about tools and the screwdriver going into the screw, it's the male, female. It's just the language of the universe. And for us to have such a presence of something that goes against that general momentum, it just, in my assessment from what I've been taught from America and from just being alive, it does not fit within the classification as natural. So that's all I'm saying, and I just promote what I believe nature intended, and I leave everyone else to do what they choose. And that's just, I think Nickelodeon is out of line. I think any childhood institution, corporation that takes it upon themselves to discuss those type of subjects with the masses of children that you have no personal idea of what their actual situation is, what they're involved in, what type of influences are around them that you're adding toward. You don't know what type of skill you may throw off balance with just over sexualizing children's content, and you calling yourself being what? I don't, inclusive of, when have we been so concerned with the sexuality of a child? In the hetero world, it's always to let suppress sexuality in children until they're of a mature age where they can develop and discern and decide for themselves. Why is it even amongst those that are 100% embracive of that community so interested in children's sexuality? It doesn't seem like it even fits alongside the laws of child protection when it comes to adult sexualizing them. It just blows my mind that a society that is supposedly so protective of the sexuality of children are so comfortable having such a grown issue just paraded before them, and to the point of a father allowing a minor to go to a parade of that sort. These are adults that have lived lives and grown up, and they're out there, and the way it looks. They're just from the little clips we get to see, still pictures. It is very sexually charged. There are a lot of, you ever been to Hollywood? And just see the way people express themselves when they typically are a part of that community. So, some of it is so elaborate and flamboyant that to bombard a child's brain with all these images and cause them to have to process all this as normal and natural cannot do an adolescent brain any good. There's no way in the world. On my mama. You hear Curtisha say, growing up, he was confused. His mama, you feel me? On my mama, his mama confused him sexually. And this is why we probably have him in public making so many questionable movements when it comes to subjects of a sexual nature. From the VV, the Vivica violation, and the way he responded and lost his cool on that show and promised to never do it again. Other things. But I don't want to get too distracted by that. Oh, my mama. But Nickelodeon, I don't know. It's a cold world we live in, y'all. We got to stay alert. Especially, those of us that's raising these babies. Sheesh. Diligence. You can't go to sleep on the job. Oh, my mama.
Nickelodeon that hustle. Big shout out to my nigga SPI, Spotter Loc. You know, I'm in the black box. Had to come through, tap in, show love one time. Yeah, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Stay tuned.